senator and the Republican caucus chairman in the state Senate. He was just confirmed as a federal judge last week. So, you've got judges, tax cuts are working. We were just next door, did a breakfast with some folks. The mayor was there, and people were talking about the amount of economic activity. Your new Mayor Brooks. We all have to get used to saying Mayor Brooks instead of Rep Brooks.
Yeah.
But, it's just the amount of activity in Bradley County. The amount of activity in Chattanooga. You're seeing it statewide. Tennessee now has the fastest growing median household income of any state in the Southeast, and one of the fastest in the nation.
That is great news.
Yeah, and a high turnout already. We were reading in the paper, and we had a caller this morning. It was at the early voting, turned away because there was lines out there already.
Right.
So it's something else. And you talk about high returns. I got a text here from Vice President Mike Pence, who you know very well.
Yeah, I do.
He said, meet the Tennesseans, hard to work, and what you're doing, that tax cuts are continuing, investing in cost savings and workers. Estimated Tennessee families are saving nearly $4,000 a year. The things that you're doing up there in Congress.
That's right. When you look at the tax relief alone is $1,700 a year, and you couple regulatory relief with that, and it is less money out of the taxpayer's pocket. And this is making a difference in so many people in their lives and how they choose to, what they choose to do. We were just talking about with the tax cuts, you've got small business owners that have more profit in their pocket, and they can say, okay, do we want to grow the business? Do we want to hire somebody? How do we want to utilize this money that we have made? And that is where you see small businesses and really growing. And I tell you, that is also one of the reasons that both the NFIB and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce have endorsed me in this race. They have looked at the two candidates, they have looked at our records, and they say Marsha Blackburn is the best for business. You've got the Fraternal Order of Police that has looked at our records, and the Police Benevolent Association, and they said Marsha Blackburn is the toughest on crime, she's the toughest on drugs and trafficking, and they've endorsed me.
Yeah, and I see where the NRA has backed you, too.
I'm the best when it comes to gun rights.
What about gun rights? That's this area, people love their guns and stuff.
Well, and, with me, you've got somebody who has an A rating from the NRA, and I do have the NRA's endorsement. You have Phil Bredesen, who has a D rating from the NRA. So it's a different approach. I'm going to be there to protect your Second Amendment rights and support constitutional judges. Democrats, and of course Phil Bredesen wanted Hillary Clinton to be president. He gave her $33,400. He said Tennesseans should roll up their sleeves and go to work for her. And Democrats and people like Hillary Clinton would give you judges and justices like Sonia Sotomayor, who says she does not think an individual has the right to own a handgun or to own a gun, a firearm. So it's just completely different approaches.
Yeah. You talk about the economy a little bit. How about the job situation? The jobs are down right now. The jobs are down. Food stamps has decreased, and more people at work, more tax money.
Right.
What y'all doing up there in Washington is really working out. I'm a small business owner myself. I have 25 employees. And I'm getting ready to add some more equipment. So with the money I'm getting returns on, I'm actually benefit from that and be able to provide more jobs.
It's not crumbs.
Yeah.
Phil Bredesen and Nancy Pelosi both said it was crumbs, but it's not crumbs.
That's crumbs. A little bit about health care. Where are we at with health care? I know your strong stance on health care and Obamacare and trying to reverse it. What's your stand on healthcare? Let our listeners know what you want to do with healthcare.
I think we should get the Affordable Care Act off the books because it has driven up the cost of health insurance in Tennessee by 176%.
Yeah.
So many people have been priced out of the health insurance marketplace. And there's a good solution, private sector solution to this. And it is to open up the insurance marketplace and do a cross-state line purchase of health insurance. Let people buy whatever they can afford to buy, whatever they want to buy, and get it at a price they can afford, something that really meets the needs of their family. That's what they want to see. And, also when you look at healthcare access, the fact that you had $700 billion taken out of the Medicare Trust Fund. That's money that's come out of your pocket all your working life that is in Medicare. And so Obamacare took $700 billion of that to stand up Obamacare. I'm going to tell you what. When the Affordable Care Act gets repealed, that money needs to go back into Medicare because it's so unfair to seniors because their premiums and their copays have gone up because they took that $700 billion out of Medicare to stand up Obamacare.
Yeah, the penalties you have to pay, too, and the cost for individuals that low income, they can't afford Obamacare.
Well, that's a great point. That's a great point. They can't afford it. And we had 160,000 Tennessee families last year that paid the penalty for not buying an ACA-compliant plan, and 100,000 of those families had joint household incomes of $100,000 or less.
Wow.
But they couldn't afford to buy the insurance. And I will tell you this, one of the biggest complaints that we get and that we hear from people is if they do buy that insurance, then they can't afford to use it because it doesn't cover what they have a need for. That's why you want people to buy an insurance product that meets their needs and the needs of their family.
Oh, Marsha, I want to ask you, too, about child protection in Tennessee. That was one of the bills, and you really led it in 2015. What's your stand on that? And I want to roll into that as far as Sex Trafficking Act, too, that you're very vocal about things coming through. And people don't really realize these things are happening coming through our states. Am I correct?
That is very true. And last Friday, Senator Corker and I did a roundtable in Chattanooga on the sex trafficking issue, and we met with Second Life, who is it's an organization, a nonprofit, that is the organization in this part of the state that is working with law enforcement on this issue. And we know that children need to be protected in the virtual space. And what is happening is a lot of these sex traffickers that are working domestically. You've got them offshore and then you have them domestically. And what they're doing is tracking these children online. And sometimes it is through the home computer or through a school computer. And then they start to befriend them. And then they lure them into these trafficking rings or to become a runaway. And usually it is that first 48 hours that is so critical for these children once they run away, because they will be nabbed or pulled into one of these labor trafficking or sex trafficking rings. And as a mom and grandmom, I tell you what, this is something that to me is just devastating. And I really came to this issue. I've always done a lot of work. And just through my volunteer work and through our church with child advocacy centers and child abuse centers, domestic abuse centers, and the protection of women and children, and those that are just so incredibly vulnerable. And this is something that we realized through abuse, that many times there was a component that was just a very dark component connected with this. And then with my work as chairman of communications and technology, working in this space, realizing that what we've got, what is happening, is you have these individuals working online. I led the effort to close down Backpage.com. We were successful in that, and we continue. We've worked, the TBI in Slavery, Tennessee, have done a good job in tracking these organizations, and actually the largest sex trafficking bust that has ever been carried out in Tennessee was carried out by our TBI working within slavery over in Middle Tennessee.
And you mentioned in the debate, you mentioned something about children in foster care being targeted. And
That's
you
right.
didn't have enough time to finish, and I wanted to let you speak more to that, because when I heard that, and we've all heard stories about people that were abused in foster care, but when I heard that, I thought a lot of times the children in foster care have already been in a horrible situation.
You're right. One of the things that we have learned is that many times children in foster care will be followed online and lured. And the groups like Second Life and End Slavery, who do so much to help protect these children, are doing a really solid job in education. And you've got these groups that are putting more attention on education, because children are online at an earlier age.
Yes.
And parents need to be aware, and guardians need to be aware that these children can have people begin to follow their social media and track them and try to pull them. Many times it's children that are looking for acceptance. This is why it is so important.
It's, a lot of times the children, they think that they're speaking to someone in their peer group. A lot of times when they're revealing details about where they live or where they go to school, they think they're talking to someone in their own peer group.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Or someone they know.
Yeah.
And they really don't.
Well, Marcia, I've been told, but we've only got 2 more minutes before you have to move on. So I want to give you an opportunity for our listeners to let them know a little bit more about you, what you stand for. How can they contact you? How can they get involved here?
Wonderful.
In that?
And we need all that help. I say we're not going to win this one by ourselves, because we know that Phil Bredesen has all the media and the money, and we've got the people and the policies. And I do ask for the vote of all your listeners. You know, they can go to MarciaBlackburn.com and find out more about our campaign. Volunteer, come help us. We are knocking doors and making phone calls and working polls and all those things that are necessary to get the vote out. But if your listeners want a good, solid conservative, somebody that's going to take Tennessee values to Washington, D.C., put them to work for them, I'm their candidate. We know that my opponent, Phil Bredesen, has said he is running to end the dry spell for Democrats in the state of Tennessee. And then he turned around and said, but if I run as a Democrat, I can't win. So I got to make him think that I'm an independent.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he's going to be held to Schumer up there. He's going to hold him in line. Jeff has said that.
Schumer will be the boss.
He would be the boss. He's not going to get out of line up there. So anyway, again, thank you so much for stopping by, U.S. Congressman. And our next, I'm going to predict it here, state senator and the first female too.
That's right. I'd be the first female ever elected to statewide office.
Statewide
You're
office.
Right.
So congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm voting today. So you got my vote.
Awesome.
Okay?
Thank you. I appreciate that vote. Thanks so much.
There we go. All right. Thank you, Marcia. We appreciate it. And you're listening to the Morning Jive with Jeff and Tom in the morning, and we'll be right back here just after a short break. All right, yeah. There's Morning Mimosas. We're in overtime a little bit. We will. Let's stay on the air about 5 more minutes and talk about the the interview, and
I thought it was great.
It was a great interview.